the runaway groom in a distant alien planet called Zelthar Prime. A grand wedding was taking place. It was not just any wedding. It was the union between a human diplomat and an alien princess. The air smelled of glowing flowers and floating. Lights danced above the silver ceremony grounds. Thousands of alien guests filled the royal courtyard. They watched silently as Commander Elian, a human man in a dark ceremonial robe, stood beside Princess Zalara, the future queen of the Zalari. Empire Zalara was stunning. Her violet skin shimmered under the twin moons, and her long white hair flowed like silk. Her eyes, glowing softly, held a strange beauty, mystical, powerful, and a little dangerous. She smiled gently at Elian, who tried to hide the fear growing in his chest. He wasn't ready for this. The marriage had been arranged by the Intergalactic Council to form peace between humans and the Zalari. Elian, known for his loyalty and negotiation skills, had been chosen as the perfect candidate, but no one had told him about the ancient rituals that followed the wedding. As the final vows were spoken, Zalara reached out and touched Elian's forehead. A strange heat passed between them. The crowd cheered. Drums echoed in the sky. It was done. That night, in a private chamber of the royal palace, Elian sat alone. The room was beautiful but strange, alive almost. The walls pulsed softly like heartbeat. A soft breeze passed through the air, carrying a sweet scent that made him dizzy. Then Zalara entered. She wore a ceremonial gown made of glowing threads. Her steps were silent, her eyes intense. She came close to Elian and whispered, "Tonight our souls will be bound. You will never be able to leave me again. Not even in death." Elian froze. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice shaking. "Once the ritual is complete," she said calmly, "our minds will become one. You will feel my thoughts. I will feel yours. We will share pain and pleasure forever." He backed away. "That's not what I agreed to." Zalara tilted her head. "You were chosen. Do you not wish to honor our union?" Elian's heart pounded. He had read about alien bonding before, but this was deeper, darker. If what she said was true, he would never be free again, never alone in his own mind, never able to leave or hide or forget. That night, while Zalara slept under the moonlight, Elian made his move. He crept silently through the palace, avoiding the glowing sentries and guards with insect-like armor. He used a stolen passkey given to him by an old maintenance worker who had warned him days ago. "Some unions cannot be undone, human. If you value your freedom, you must leave before the bonding." Elian reached the docking bay. A sleek, diplomatic shuttle stood in the corner, ready for emergency escape. His hands trembled as he entered the codes. The ship hummed to life. He looked back once, and a strange guilt filled him. Zalara had never hurt him. She had never yelled or forced him. But the bond, the thought of losing himself. He pressed launch. The shuttle burst from the bay and shot into the stars. Alarms screamed behind him, but it was too late. He had escaped. As the stars streaked by his window, Elian sat back in the pilot's seat, breathing hard. He told himself it was the right choice. He wasn't ready to give up his mind. He wasn't ready to belong to someone forever. But deep inside, something felt wrong. Back in the palace, Zalara awoke to find her bed empty. Her glowing eyes narrowed as she touched the side of her head. Her fingers trembled as she whispered in her native tongue, "The bond, it's incomplete." She stood up, walked to the balcony, and looked up at the night sky. "You fled," she said softly, with no anger, only sadness. "But you are mine, and the stars will not hide you." Far away in his shuttle, Elian suddenly felt a strange warmth on his forehead. He touched it. It pulsed once, like a heartbeat. His eyes widened. She was still connected, and she was coming. Across the void, Commander Elian had disappeared into the stars. He thought he was safe. For weeks he floated between systems, changing his identity again and again. First, he landed on a trade moon called Orna 7, where no one asked questions and credits spoke louder than names. He got a fake ID, called himself Jace, and worked in a scrapyard repairing old space haulers. He kept his head low. He never stayed long in one place. He avoided all interstellar communication. He avoided mirrors, too, because every time he looked into his own eyes, he remembered hers, Solara. Every night he dreamed of her. Her voice echoed in his mind, not with anger, but with something worse. Silence. She hadn't chased him. She hadn't sent ships, no bounty hunters, no messages. Nothing, but something still felt wrong, as if a piece of her had been left behind, inside him. On the 23rd night since his escape, Elian woke up gasping. He had dreamed of her eyes again, those glowing violet eyes. Only this time, they were crying. He sat up in his bunk, breathing heavily. The room felt cold. Too cold. Then he saw it. A single glowing symbol drawn on the foggy glass of his window. It pulsed softly, like it was alive. He jumped up and wiped it away. No one had been inside. He was alone. Wasn't he? The next morning he asked an old alien mechanic, "Do you know this symbol?" He drew it on a data pad. The mechanic, an old Threnny with 4 eyes and cracked gray skin, looked up slowly. "This is not a symbol, human. This is a calling mark from a soul-bound queen." Elian's blood ran cold. "It means she's reaching through the tether," the alien said, almost whispering. "Not with tech, but with the bond." Ren, Elian said. "I broke the connection. You only broke the ceremony." The Threnny replied. "The bond still lives." Elian left that moon the same day. He jumped across the galaxy, first to the frozen mines of Veldros, then to the smuggler dens on Shadak 3. He shaved his beard. He changed his ship's ID multiple times. He even tried psychic blocking pills. Illegal. Things that numbed the mind. But it didn't matter. The dreams kept coming. The symbols kept appearing. And then came the voice. It started soft, like wind in his ears while flying. A whisper that didn't belong to the engines. It would say his name, not Elian, but the one she used. My flame. One night, while hiding in a toxic gas ring around a dead planet, Elian shut down all his systems to avoid being traced. He sat in complete darkness, holding a small pulse pistol in his lap, unsure if it was meant for her or for himself. That's when the stars outside his window began to dim. Not blink, not fade. Dim, as if something massive was blocking them. He turned slowly. A ship. Not just any ship. A Zalari Royal Seeker. Its hull shimmered like liquid metal, and its form curved like a serpent through space. It hovered outside, silent, watching. There were no signals, no weapons locked. Just presence. "How did she find me?" he whispered. His ship's systems were off. Nothing should have tracked him. But she didn't need tech. She had him. Inside. Elian turned on the emergency hyperdrive. The engine screamed, light bent, and the stars turned into lines. He vanished into another sector. But even as he escaped again, a soft voice filled the cabin. Not through speakers, directly into his mind. "You. Run so far, but you never leave me." He screamed and slammed the control panel. The voice faded, or maybe it went silent on its own. He didn't know. What he did know was this. She wasn't hunting him with ships, or soldiers, or satellites. She was following his thoughts. She was in his dreams, and somewhere deep in the galaxy, Princess Zalara sat alone in her meditation chamber, her fingers glowing softly as she touched a map of the stars. "My mate runs like fire through the wind," she whispered. But fire always returns to its spark. The bounty of love, the galaxy had become a cage. No matter how far Elian ran, he felt the invisible strings pulling him back. He changed names again. Now he called himself Ren, and hid deep in the lawless sector known as the Crimson Belt, where pirates, killers, and broken souls drifted between asteroid cities and toxic planets. Here no laws reached, no authorities asked questions. Perfect for hiding. But Elian wasn't the only one who had entered the Crimson Belt. He didn't know it yet, but Zalara had already marked him, and now others had joined the chase. On a rusted station called Crag 19, Elian sat in a dim cantina, drinking something bitter and blue, trying to silence the voice in his mind that sometimes called out in whispers, sometimes in screams. He hadn't heard her clearly in days. It should have made him feel safe, but it didn't. "You look haunted," said a tall figure who sat across from him without asking. She wore black armor with old scars across the plates. Her eyes were cold silver and her voice sharper than steel. "You're the human who left the Zellari Queen, right?" Elian froze. "You've got the wrong guy," he said, trying to stand. She stopped him with a single word. "Soul-bound." His heart dropped. "Don't worry," she said, smiling thinly. "I'm not here to bring you back. I'm here to collect the bounty." Elian reached for his weapon, but before he could pull it, 3 more bounty hunters emerged from the shadows. One had tentacles for arms. One had a plasma whip already glowing. The last one had no face, just a voice box crackling like a dying star. "She's offering her royal ring," said the voice box hunter, "to anyone who brings you back alive." Elian's mouth went dry. A royal ring wasn't just currency. It was power, enough to buy fleets, moons, even loyalties. "And if I don't go with you?" Elian asked. "Then we take you in pieces," whispered the armored woman. Before they could strike, Elian kicked over the table and activated a sonic flare from his belt. The room exploded into chaos. The flare blinded the bounty hunters, giving Elian just seconds to escape. He ran through narrow alleys and leapt over broken stairs. His breath was heavy, but his legs didn't stop. Outside the station, he reached his ship, the Silent Runner, and launched it into orbit just as alarms blared behind him. Explosions rocked the docking bay as the bounty hunters chased him with small fighters. Elian's hands flew over the controls, his mind sharp with adrenaline. He twisted through asteroid fields, looped around frozen wrecks, and finally blasted into warp space, barely escaping with his life. Hours later, safe in the dark quiet of deep space, he finally let himself breathe. But one thought wouldn't leave him alone. How did they know where I was? He searched his ship for trackers. Nothing. He ran system scans. Clean. No leaks. But as he walked into his sleeping chamber, he saw it again. A symbol. Not drawn. Not glowing. Burned into the metal. The same symbol that had appeared on the glass back on Orna 7. This time it was larger, deeper. It pulsed with faint warmth when he touched it. He heard her voice again, not in his ears, but in his bones. "They cannot have you. You are mine." His knees hit the floor. He realized something horrifying. The bounty hunters were not Zellara's enemies. They were her messengers. She didn't send them to capture him. She sent them to test him, to see if he would run or fight, to see if he would choose her. Elian felt something new then, something that scared him more than death. He wasn't just being chased. He was being watched. And worse, a part of him didn't want her to stop. In a hidden throne room, lit by stars, Zellara sat alone, watching the galaxy through a veil of light. One of her advisors entered. "He escaped the hunters again," the advisor said softly. Zellara smiled. "He must run. He must suffer. Only then will he understand." "Understand what, my queen?" the advisor asked. Zellara turned her glowing eyes toward the stars. "That love is not gentle in my kind. It must be earned in blood and fire." Love and lasers, the stars weren't shining anymore. They blinked out one by one as Elian drifted silently in his ship, the Silent Runner, through deep, unmarked space. His systems were on stealth mode. His breathing was slow. Even the hum of the engine was nothing but a whisper, and still he felt watched. It had been 3 days since he escaped the bounty hunters in the Crimson Belt. 3 days since he found the symbol burned into the wall of his own ship. He had cleaned it, painted over it. But it came back, every night, and it was growing, not just in size, but in weight. The room felt heavier, like someone else was in there, breathing with him, watching. Worse than that, he had started talking to it. "What do you want from me?" he whispered one night, and the ship answered, not with sound, but with a feeling, a warmth in his chest, a tug in his spine, a memory of her smile. Princess Zalara. But Elian didn't have time to dwell. A distress signal came through, faint, broken, but human, from a nearby system uncharted on modern star maps. His instincts said ignore it, but something deeper, something inside the bond, pulled him toward it. So he went. The source of the signal led him to an abandoned battle station orbiting a dead planet. No life signs, no comms, just silence. The kind of place you don't go near unless you're desperate or cursed. Elian landed in the hangar, plasma rifle ready. He stepped inside slowly, scanning every corner. The station looked stripped and rotted. Walls covered in old rust and ash, dried blood, signs of old battles, and in the center an altar. Strange alien tech humming faintly. A recording flickered on. It showed himself, walking into this same room. But he had never been here before. He stood frozen, staring at the screen as his recorded self touched the altar. A voice echoed from them, speakers not in any language he knew. Yet he understood every word. You flee the bond, yet you return to its heart. You resist her, yet you search for her. Elian turned to run, but the door slammed shut behind him. From the shadows, figures emerged, soldiers in smooth black armor, not bounty hunters, not pirates, something else. They didn't speak, they didn't ask. They opened fire. Elian ducked and rolled, firing back with sharp bursts. Lasers lit up the room, bouncing off the metal walls. He used everything he had. Grenades, flares, even improvised weapons. The battle was chaos. He was outnumbered. And then the altar pulsed. A wave of energy knocked everyone down, and she stepped through it. Zalara, not a projection, not a vision. The real her. She walked through fire and smoke like a goddess of war, her violet armor glowing, her silver hair floating behind her like a storm. Elian aimed his rifle at her, breathing hard. "Stop," she said softly. He hesitated. "I could have taken you any time," she said. "I could have sent armies, but I wanted you to choose." Elian's voice cracked. "You sent those bounty hunters. You made me suffer. So you would see the truth," Zalara said. "I am not your enemy. You trapped me in a bond. You ran from it. Because it wasn't love," he growled. "It was control." Zalara stepped closer, lowering her weapon. "Then shoot me, Elian. If your freedom means my death, do it." He raised his rifle again. His finger trembled on the trigger, but he didn't shoot. Because he could. Feel it, her pain, her honesty, her regret. Not through words. Through the bond. She wasn't controlling him. She was connected to him, and she had been suffering too. Suddenly the room lit up red. A new ship arrived. Not hers. Not his. Another faction, unknown, dangerous, armed to the teeth. The true enemy. Soldiers in black-red armor stormed in, firing at both of them. Elian and Zalara dove for cover. They fought side by side now, back to back, lasers slicing the darkness. "Who are they?" Elian shouted. Zalara's face hardened. "They are the ones who fear our bond. They think it will unite human and Zalari. Empires. They want war." "Great," Elian muttered. "And here I thought I was just escaping a bride." They fought through the chaos, reaching the escape corridor. As explosions tore through the battle station, Elian grabbed Zalara's hand without thinking. This time, she didn't pull him closer. She followed him. They escaped together, flying through a storm of wreckage, the enemy fleet behind them. The bond between them burning like fire in their chests, and Elian whispered to himself, shaken and breathless, "This isn't just about love anymore. This is war." The Queen's sorrow. The stars were quiet now. After escaping the ambush at the battle station, Elian and Zalara flew in silence across the edge of the void, a dark, unclaimed region of space where no empire dared to go. This was the place where dead ships drifted, where signals faded and memories were buried. The silent runner had taken damage, but it still moved. Barely. Elian sat in the co-pilot seat, staring out at nothing, his jaw tight. Zalara was behind him in the med bay, treating a plasma burn on her arm. He hadn't spoken to her since they left, not because he hated her, but because he didn't know what to feel anymore. She had risked her life for him, but she had also tracked him, tested him, haunted him across the stars. So what was she now, a monster, a lover, or something far more dangerous? Zalara returned to the cockpit quietly. Her armor was cracked, her hair was tied back, but her eyes still glowed with that soft, haunting light. "Thank you," she said, her voice almost a whisper. Elian didn't turn around. "For what?" "For not leaving me behind." He shrugged. "I guess I'm just tired of running." They flew in silence for a few more minutes. Then he asked, "Who were those soldiers? The ones that attacked us?" Zalara looked down. "They call themselves the Purity Faction. Extremists, both human and Zalari, who believe our species should remain separate. They think love between us is unnatural." "Then why risk it?" Elian asked. "Why chase me across galaxies when your own people want you dead?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Because this isn't just about love. It's about legacy." She stood up and walked to the control panel. With a few taps, a hidden star map unfolded. Glowing points connected like a web. At the center of the map was a blinking symbol, a mark Elian had seen before, the one that kept appearing. In his dreams, this, she said, is the true bond, the ancient connection between soulmates. It's older than both our species. Once completed, it grants more than emotional unity. It grants power, real power, the kind that can rewrite bloodlines, merge genetics, and change destiny. Elian's hands curled into fists. "And that's why you need me?" "I didn't choose you for power," she said quickly. "The bond chose us. I felt it the moment I touched you at the wedding. But, yes, others see it as a threat. They believe our child could become something the galaxy has never seen, a hybrid with unmatched potential." Elian froze. "Child?" Zalara turned toward him. Her voice was gentle. "No child exists yet, but if we complete the bond fully, it becomes inevitable." He backed away. "You should have told me all this before." "Would you have listened?" she asked. "Back then all you saw was chains. But now you've seen the truth. The ones hunting us don't fear our love. They fear what it might become." Elian stared at her for a long time. He wanted to scream. He wanted to run again. But something inside him had changed. He had started to feel her pain, not just through the bond, but in her silence, her broken words, her tired eyes. "You didn't want this either," he said softly. Zalara nodded. "I was forced into the marriage too, by the council. They told me bonding with a human would end centuries of war. I obeyed because I'm queen. But when I saw you run, part of me wanted to follow, not as a queen, but as a woman who was also trapped." Elian sat down slowly. "So, we're both prisoners of the same lie." She nodded again. Then she showed him something. From her belt, she pulled out a small crystal vial. Inside it was a sliver of light spinning slowly. "What is that?" Elian asked. "A memory. From before the bond was broken." She placed it into the ship's projector. A scene appeared. The Royal Council. Alien elders standing in a circle discussing the bond. But their words were sharp, cold. "If the human refuses, we will hunt him down, no matter where he runs. We cannot let the prophecy complete without control, and if the queen resists, then she will fall beside him." The image faded. Elian leaned back, his heart heavy. He had been running from the wrong thing. The bond wasn't the prison. The ones who created it were. And now, they were both targets. He looked at Zalara again. She was no longer the glowing alien, princess in his nightmares. She was real, flawed, afraid, and still standing. "What do we do now?" he asked. Xalara's voice was clear. We stop running. We fight back. Elian smiled bitterly. Guess I married a war queen. Xalara smiled. Too soft and sad. And I married a runner who finally turned around. The hunter becomes hunted. They were done hiding. After learning the truth about the Purity faction and the prophecy, Elian and Xalara prepared for war. Not for an army, but for one strike. One base. One target. If they could take down the Purity, command center hidden in the Vale sector, they could end the hunt before it spread to both human and Xalari homeworlds. The Vale sector was known across the galaxy for one thing: disappearance. Ships went in and never came back. But Elian wasn't afraid anymore, not with Xalara beside him. The silent runner approached the Vale slowly. Ion storms flickered at the edges, painting the sky in violent reds and blacks. The space around them trembled like it was alive. Inside the cockpit, Elian tightened the straps on his suit. Are you ready? He asked. Xalara didn't look away. From the scanner. I was born ready, but this time I'm not fighting as a queen, I'm fighting as your bondmate. He looked at her for a long moment. Let's finish what they started, he said. They entered the Vale. Instantly, the ship's systems flickered. Screens glitched. Oxygen levels dipped, then returned. It felt like flying through a living nightmare. But at the center of the storm, they found it. A massive hidden station cloaked behind radiation clouds. It didn't look like a military base. It looked like a cathedral. Tall, dark towers, glowing red windows, and at the center a spire shaped like a claw gripping a sun. There it is, Xalara whispered. The nest of lies. They docked in silence. No alarms went off. The station was quiet, too quiet. They entered through an old maintenance shaft. Elian led with his plasma rifle, Xalara with her curved Xalari blade. The halls were narrow, cold, echoing with distant sounds that didn't match any natural echo. Do you feel it? Xalara whispered. Elian nodded. Like we're walking inside a throat and it's breathing. Then the lights shut off. Total darkness, and a voice filled the air. We knew you'd come. Both of you. They turned quickly, weapons raised, but there was no one. Just the voice, cold and hollow, echoing through their minds. You think you're free. You think your love makes you strong. But love is not power. Love is a leash, and now we pull. The floor opened beneath them. They fell into a chamber, round, glowing with ancient alien markings. At the center, a figure waited, an old man, human. But not just any man, Commander Hale. Alien's former mentor. You? Alien gasped. You were behind this? Hale smiled coldly. I was behind the mission that brought you to Zelthar Prime. I trained you. I chose you. Not because you were strong, but because you were predictable. Xalara stepped forward. You planned the bond. Yes, Hale said calmly. And when he ran, he fulfilled the second prophecy. You see, the bond isn't just a connection. It's a weapon. Once completed, it will awaken something ancient. Something buried in both your bloodlines. And we can't let that happen. Elian raised his rifle. Then you're too late. We've already started it. Hale smiled again. Exactly. Suddenly, pain shot through Elian's chest. He screamed, falling to his knees. Xalara ran to him, grabbing his shoulders. What's happening? The symbols on the walls began to glow. The air thickened. Hale whispered, We never meant to stop the bond. We meant to steal it. The station wasn't just a command center. It was a siphon. The Purity faction had created it to extract the bond energy from soulmates and use it to fuel their own war machines. Elian's vision blurred. He could feel his memory slipping, his voice fading. Xalara's eyes widened in horror. No, she whispered. You can't take him from me. She rose, and something inside her unleashed. Her body lit up with violet fire. Markings appeared across her skin, symbols of the old Xalari queens. The ground cracked beneath her feet. Machines began to spark and melt. You want the bond? She roared. Then feel its wrath. She grabbed Elian's hand and completed it. not through ritual, but through rage. A wave of blinding light exploded through the chamber. Hale screamed. Alarms shattered. Walls crumbled. The entire station began to collapse. Elian opened his eyes, and he wasn't alone in his mind anymore. Solara was there, not speaking, just being. They ran together through falling debris, through flame and shadow, toward the hangar bay. They made it out, just as the station imploded behind them, taking the Purity faction's secrets into the void. On board the silent runner, Elian sat quietly. Solara sat beside him, breathing hard. "You still in my head?" he asked. "Yes," she said softly. "But now you're in mine too." They looked at each other, not as hunter and hunted, but as two broken souls, finally whole. The stars witnessed the vow. The galaxy had changed, but peace hadn't come yet. After the collapse of the Purity faction's siphon station, Elian and Solara became fugitives again, not because they were dangerous, but because they were feared. The bond they shared was now complete, fully awakened, glowing like a star between their minds and hearts. But it had done something more. It had unlocked ancient bloodlines, traits buried deep in both human and Zellari history. Strange abilities, heightened senses, shared memories. Even time itself sometimes twisted around them. They needed answers, so they went to the one place left untouched by war, the ruins of Ishlor, a lost temple floating inside a dying star's orbit. It was old, older than both human and Zellari civilizations, a place of truth. The temple was quiet, cold, and cracked by time. Floating rocks surrounded it, each carved with glowing runes. Elian and Solara stepped into the main chamber, where the air buzzed with ancient energy. A hologram appeared. Not a person, but a presence. The voice spoke in 1,000 languages at once, but Elian could understand it clearly. "You have completed the eternal bond, and now the stars must decide, will you rise together or fall apart?" Solara looked at Elian. He didn't speak. Instead, he took her hand, and the stars answered. The floor of the temple split open, revealing a map, not of space, but of timelines. One showed destruction, war, chaos, empires falling. Another showed unity, humans and Zellari side by side rebuilding lost knowledge. But both paths centered around a single moment, the vow, a sacred ceremony, last performed thousands of years ago, where bonded pairs swore loyalty, not just to each other, but to the galaxy itself. "We have to finish it," Solara whispered. "The vow is the only way to seal the bond's power. Otherwise, it will destroy us both." Elian nodded slowly. "And if we fail, then the galaxy tears itself apart," she said. But the moment they placed their hands on the glowing altar to begin the vow, they were attacked. 3 warships dropped out of hyperspace above the temple, marked with the insignia of the old Galactic Council. Soldiers descended like fire, led by a tall woman in golden armor. "Step away from the altar," the woman shouted. "This ritual is forbidden. You were never meant to bond." Solara narrowed her eyes. "We were chosen, not by empires, by fate. Fate is not law," the woman said. "This power must die with you." Before Elian could react, a pulse weapon fired. Solara jumped in front of him. The blast hit her chest. She fell. Everything stopped. Elian screamed. He felt her pain, not as sound, but as fire through his own soul. He dropped beside her, hands shaking. She was alive but fading. "Don't stop," she whispered. "Finish the vow." But Elian couldn't move, until her voice echoed inside his mind. Not weak, but strong. "You are not alone." And for the first time, he believed it. He stood, eyes burning with light, voice steady. "I vow my life to hers." The altar glowed. "I vow my soul to hers." The stars outside shifted. "I vow my future, my past, my everything." The chamber exploded in golden light, and then silence. The enemy forces vanished. not destroyed, displaced, scattered across time, forgotten like dust in the wind. Zalara opened her eyes. The wound on her chest had vanished. They had completed the vow. But they were no longer just lovers. They were keepers of the eternal bond. They returned to the galaxy not as fugitives, but as symbols. The bond, once feared, became a beacon, old. Enemies laid down weapons. The Galactic Council dissolved. A new alliance was formed. Human, Xalari, and others who had once remained in the shadows. And on a quiet moon orbiting a blue star, Elian and Zalara stood beneath the sky watching as children of both species played together. He looked at her, smiling softly. "You chased me across the stars." Zalara smiled back. "And I'd do it again." He nodded. "Next time, I won't run." And above them, the stars witnessed it all.